This is a problem I think that adults sometimes have making media for kids. It's like they kind of dumb it down. Even from a young age, I saw through that.
This is a deeper listen from listener-powered KEXP. It's the show where we talk with musicians about the thoughts and the experiences that shape their music. I'm Roddy Nikpour. Public television has been under scrutiny since the President of the United States demanded Congress strip it of all federal funding. And that's through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. There's a lot of arguments for and against funding public television that come back to America's children and the future that Republicans and Democrats want for America's children. But let's put aside your feelings for Elmo for this story. I want to introduce you to a relatively newer show on PBS Kids, one that just might appeal to audiences of all political persuasions.
Yes, it's Carl, the Collector. It's Carl, absolutely.
Carl the Collector started airing in late 2024. This show follows the adventures of an autistic raccoon named Carl who likes to collect things with his friends, and they romp around a place called Fuzzytown, presumably called that because every creature on the show is some kind of fuzzy animal, like his friends Sheldon, a beaver, Forrest, a hyperactive squirrel, Nico and Arugula, twin rabbits, and Lotta, a fox, and a gifted musician.
My brain sees colors when I hear music.
The main reason I wanted to take a deeper listen with this show is because of the music. Oh my God, the music in this show is so good. You're watching Carl and his friends building tree forts, having hard conversations, and there's always some kind of funky jam happening in the background. It's very much in the spirit of a Charlie Brown cartoon. I managed to get a hold of the show's creator, Zach Ohora, or Zach. He's also a picture book author and illustrator, which is evident in his art style. And I also called up the musical minds behind Carl the Collector, Max Perla and Vincent John. Since 2019, they've been running a label called Eraserhood Sound, based in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia happens to be where Zach is based too, so that's how they made their connection. I rounded up all three of these guys to talk about what led to the creation of Carl the Collector, why a kids show in 2025 deserves a synth and soul soundtrack. But before we got to all that, though, I felt like I needed to justify why I was so familiar with PBS Kids programming, even before I had a kid of my own. So I got a dog a few years ago. He's a small 6-pound Chihuahua named Krusty, and he's 14 years old. And when I was leaving the house to go to work or something, I didn't want to leave him by himself, so I turned on the TV. We have some really cheap antenna, and I would leave on the news or something, and then it'd be a terrible news story I'd come home to, or a political ad. I was like, I don't want to do this. So I would flip through the channels, and then I was on PBS Kids, and I was just like, yeah, sure, this is fine. This is good. And I'd come home and it's turn it off. There was a while where PBS Kids was just kind of always on in my house, including through last year, which is when I saw a promo for Carl the Collector come on.
Coming in November to PBS Kids.
And, we love all PBS Kids shows, but then I saw Carl the Collector's art style, so Zach, your art style, I was just kind of taken by that.
Nice.
And then obviously the music going underneath the scenes they were showing. So how did that lead you to creating this show? And if you want to just briefly touch on why the main character is autistic, because I know your child is not autistic, but right, has experiences with friends who are autistic, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Sure. Well, first off, I'm glad that, was it Krusty? Is that your dog's name?
Yeah, Krusty, yeah.
I love that Krusty brought you to Carl the Collector.
Yeah, it's funny because we actually have a 3-month-old now, so it's because I actually have the excuse to leave PBS Kids on. It's not just Krusty anymore. We have a child.
It's for everybody and Krusty, of course, but Carl the Collector stars a lead character who is autistic, Carl, and he collects things. He's a raccoon. I'm a huge fan of raccoons, and I collect records. I probably have maybe around 4,000 records at the moment, which is always getting bigger and smaller as I need to clean things out and switch things up. At a certain point, I had a book called Wolfie the Bunny that came out. It was written by Amy Dykman, and it caught the attention of PBS Kids, and they were familiar with my other work. And they came to me in December of 2015, Natalie Angle. Shout out to Natalie. She came to me and was like, hey, we're looking for show creators outside of our usual pool. If you have any ideas for a show, we love your artwork, we love your books, we'd love to talk. And of course, I was like, yo, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Like, I was already a PBS kid and, you know, growing up, and I was like, oh, wow, like, I need to figure something out. I went through my other collection of like rejected book ideas, which is also a big collection. And I had Carl the Collector as just this character that I thought it would be funny if he was like a little OCD. I don't know if it's like even true, but you know how like they say like raccoons like wash their hands before they eat or whatever. So it was just kind of a one-note joke at first, and it kind of didn't go anywhere. It was just like him and his beaver best pal trying to have a sleepover in the backyard. You know, we started talking about it. My kids were starting school at the same time. I have 2 boys. They're now in high school.
Oh, wow.
And which tells you how long it takes to make a show like this. And they were going to an inclusion school, a very democratic idea of access to education. So, you know, if a kid needs an aid or whatever it is they need, or, you know, headphones to get through the day, they're in the classroom. They get the same amount of teacher time, same amount of socialization with other kids, which is really important. And what I noticed with my kids that was very different from how I grew up is that they just treated everybody the same, like they were all friends.
Thunderstorms really freak me out, and the headphones really help.
I really don't like thunderstorms either.
Try headphones next time.
And it really, like, it gave me pause. I was like, oh, this is how it should be. Like, if we are exposed to sort of like the full spectrum of humanity at a younger age, then, you know, it'll take some of the stigma out of it. It'll take some of the mystery out of it, you know, what's going on with other people. And then you can just be friends and find what you have in common.
That's totally the vibe of the show too. Just like
yeah.
What if we like just talk to each other and like
yeah.
really
Let's try that.
Yeah. These kids just like talk to each, like, it's not like they don't have problems. Like, they have problems, they get frustrated.
Sure.
But like they're equipped with the tools to talk to each other and treat each other with respect, even when there's like disagreements. I think that's utopian, to say the least.
It's definitely utopian. It's definitely like the friends that you wished you had.
Yeah. And I have to shout out the musically inclined character Lotta.
Oh yeah.
One of Carl's friends. She's always making these like sick beats.
I write, compose, and play.
And she has, I guess, a condition, would you call it? Synesthesia?
Yeah, synesthesia, yeah.
Which means she sees colors when she hears music, which is one of the things that always sounds cool. But I can imagine that's also disruptive to your life. I don't know.
Well, it's part of her autism, so like, which I guess is like a common thing. So she loves music and is like really good at it, but she's also super sensitive to sound, so she'll have noise canceling headphones a lot of the time. And, but she has a sweet collection of old school, you know, synths from back in the day. Like, you know, the more affordable small kid ones.
Oh yeah, naturally.
And now, here's Lotta.
Which is a great segue. Max and Vincent, who are on the call from Eraserhood Sound, who also have a collection of really cool vintage synths and other instruments. So we got Carl the Collector in one timeline in our heads. At the same time, so Max and Vincent, also in Philly, are the brains behind Eraserhood Sound. Tell me how you two met and how you guys decided to start not just playing music together, but building Eraserhood Sound and the clients that you built, and how you landed on that 60s, 70s, 80s sound.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having us. And, you know, I'd like Max to jump in, actually. He's better with the historical stuff.
Sure. Max here from Eraserhood Sound. We became friends when we were kids in grade school, just bonding over, you know, regular kid stuff. We played sports together, but we were also getting into music together. And we played in the concert band together, and you know, we started to learn about recording together as we grew older and, you know, went on this musical journey through life. In 2019, we decided to come together, and it was this style that was kind of different from all these other scenes that we had been a part of. So we started working together, you know, every week, twice a week, until we just decided, you know, we're going to create our own production company and record label called Eraserhood Sound, which is named after David Lynch's movie Eraserhead, which was inspired by his time living in this part of Philadelphia, which is colloquially known locally as the Eraserhood.
You're working out of a studio that was built for Questlove, is what I've been reading. And tell me about the place where you live within Philly and how your sound is part of that place.
Absolutely. Before the studio we're currently in, we were a few blocks away, also still in the Eraserhood. There's about 5 or 6 studios on this floor of an old industrial building. And this floor was originally built for members of the Roots. This room we're in was originally built for Questlove. But the neighborhood it's an industrial neighborhood. And
it's not maybe quite as eerie as when David Lynch was making his movie. It's a little more developed and modernized, but it definitely, there's old warehouses, old factories. It's an industrial area. It's a part of Philadelphia history, with Questlove's room. It's a part of musical history. So it's a really unique, inspiring place to be. And we always like to, highlight the fact that we're from Philly because we definitely have that pride, and we love to be running a record label and focusing on vinyl releases and running it out of Questlove's old record room where he housed, thousands of records to make, inspire generations of musicians.
Yeah, truly an honor to be working in the same place that he did.
You guys have worked with lots of artists, including like Say She She. Angelo Outlaw is someone you've worked with, put out a record last year called Axis of Time. I was really jamming on that when it came out. How did you start building these clients and non-PBS clients to start, and what kind of that process looks like working with those people?
With Say She She, that collaboration happened through their record label, Coal Mine Records, who we distribute our music through. The way that we discovered Angelo, to be honest, was looking up the hashtag Philly music. We were looking for a front person to meld with our backing as a 2-man rhythm section, because we didn't mention this, but Max is a drummer and I'm a percussionist drummer, and I'm a bass player, keyboardist, and guitarist. So between the two of us, we lay down almost all of a track. The records we love are by an artist, not a production duo typically, even though you're hearing a production duo sometimes like Mizell Brothers or a Motown thing. You need a front person when you're doing that role. So Angelo was so unique in that he's a vibraphonist and also a poet. So we were able to tap into some really cool stuff, from Roy Ayers' Ubiquity, obvious influence, to like Italian cinema soundtrack, to a little bit of boogie, a little more 80s bump on a couple songs. So that's a wonderful project. We're actually going to start making a second LP with him this summer.
Max and Vincent, you guys have known each other since you were children in the school band. Do you guys feel like that childhood chemistry plays a lot into your chemistry as musicians as well?
It's a lot of just trust and faith in the other person that they are on the same wavelength as you and they're going to do something awesome.
That's like a very Carl and Sheldon sort of vibe.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I appreciate your help. Always, Carl. That's what best buds are for.
Yeah!
So that's my segue back to Zach. Zach, so these guys are grooving down the street at Eraserhood, and you got approached to make this PBS Kids show about your character that you unearthed, Carl the Collector. When you were asked to make a kids show, big points of reference, especially on PBS Kids, the music in it is very childish, right? So I think about Daniel Tiger. We love Daniel Tiger, but the music in Daniel Tiger is like, it's okay to feel two feelings at the same time, that sort of stuff.
Sometimes you feel two feelings at the same time, and that's okay.
Outside of PBS, I think about like, even when there are like, proper bands on kids shows, it's like the Aquabats doing the Wiggles,
It was a pool party for everybody in the world.
And then you got Carl the Collector, which is much more in the tradition of like the Peanuts cartoons with Charlie Brown, because it's just like this chill, cool music underscoring kind of the whole show, whether the moments are exciting or sad or whatever.
I fell in the park and Carl didn't help me. That's what's going on.
Hi, Nico. I'm sorry you thought I didn't want to help you when you fell. I wanted to help.
Well, you didn't.
At what point did you know or decide you didn't want Carl the Collector's music to sound like kid music? So why does that synth soul work for Carl the Collector? And then how did you connect with Max and Vincent?
All the way from the beginning, I knew that like the music was going to be really important to me. Like I'm the kind of person who I'm listening to music, 20 hours a day. Like it's just always on. I'm always interested in hearing something I haven't heard before. And I also, when my kids were little, we watched, there was a lot of shows that they really like to watch. And, they get up early, you make them eggs, I'm having my coffee. And the shows that I really started blocking and I couldn't stand were just those ones that were like super loud and goofy and, hey, let's all, and I was drawn to show, like I love, it's a good call on the Peanuts. Like the entire vibe of the show is like very influenced by Peanuts. The Charlie Brown specials where the kids are basically kind of like problem solving that stuff themselves, like they're intelligent human beings who are like autonomous.
There's this kite-eating tree that eats up all my kites. That's ridiculous, Charlie Brown. There's no such thing.
So that entire vibe, and obviously like Vince Guaraldi and those soundtracks are just like, that's just some of the best music that you can think of, besides maybe like, epic golden era Sesame Street, with like the Pointer Sisters or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is a problem I think that adults sometimes have making media for kids, and this could be books or music or whatever. It's like they kind of dumb it down. Even from a young age, I saw through that. I was like, I just want to hear something that I like, and it doesn't have to be kidified or like jacked up to 11 and have like this chorus that like, you have to repeat over and over, and all that stuff kind of even made my skin crawl as a kid. And so, as an adult, I'm like, let's just make good music for kids that they can just enjoy good music because they're intelligent enough. Like music is instantaneous. It's like you feel it, it's good, or you don't, Like the TV, let's face it, can be a third parent, and it's sometimes crucial if you're cooking or got to take a shower or something when they're young. But at the same time, I want them to have an experience together where they're listening to it together, and that like the parents wouldn't be annoyed by the music and they would actually like enjoy it as part of the experience. So that was really like right out of the gate.
So, do you want to talk about it?
Mama, I made a plan. And then all these things kept happening that were not the plan.
What I like about the philosophy here is like it's kind of the anti-Coco Melon, because that's the most high stimulating. I'm not even going to use a clip for the story, but like it's just so overwhelming and overstimulating, and I think that exhausts the children too.
Yeah. It just makes sense, especially if it's something that's going to be on the background, and it's not adding to like the stress of a household, and obviously in this day and age too, it's like we're so overstimulated by so many things that it's nice to have that safe space. And what's cool, and to be honest, like I didn't know this going into it because I didn't even know a lot about autism. But it turns out that like, people with autism or with sensory issues, it's like the music slides right into like a good zone for people. It just happened to be what I really like and, what Eraserhood Sound was already doing. Once I like kind of locked into them and then realized they were from Philly, I was like, this is it. Like I got to go meet these guys and hopefully they're down to do this because what they do already is like perfect for it.
tell me about the connection. So did you just like, they're from Philly, you know, did you just like cold call them or like, you know, what happened there?
I think so. Basically, I think I, you know, stalked him on Instagram and just like shot him an email, and we had a meeting. And one of the things that like stood out to me, their other tagline besides Eraserhood Sound was Synth and Soul. And that to me was like a secret handshake, like little subtitle, because I loved Truth and Soul Records. And as it turns out, Vincent has, you know, a bunch of history with those guys in Lee Fields.
You keep trying, but you just can't win.
It was like a secret code just for me. It was like, I need to meet these guys and talk to them about doing this project.
And they said yes.
And yeah, thankfully they said yes, which has been just incredible. And like looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know who else could have done it. Like there's been so many synchronous moments of like connecting with the Eraserhood Sound for this project for Carl that it seems like destined to be.
Yeah.
And you might just win.
Back to Max and Vincent, like you were asked to score this children's show influenced by Peanuts and Charlie Brown, and you guys were creating the Synth and Soul, you know, recipe. When I watch the show, one thing I love about it, I always leave subtitles on. And when something's happening, like in the back, like it's not a non-dialogue part, but there's music, the subtitles will actually say like pizza jam or like all out, like search jam or like building tree fort jam, you know, something like that.
Those might be like real file names, you know, of like
I want
That's amazing.
Are you guys aware of that?
We were not aware of that aspect, but it makes sense because each of these cues have a name, and there's sometimes like 25 to 30 cues in an 11-minute story. So they're usually quite literal. We do come up with some more artistic ones if we are like kind of vibing on something organically, but yeah, Pizza Jam 4 you might see, or
I think they take the 4 out, but yeah, it is like Pizza Jam.
Wow. Turned out, didn't it? Cool.
Something you do is that you score live to tape, right? So like you're watching a clip of Carl the Collector and you guys, Max and Vincent, you guys are just jamming along to it.
Yeah, so we'll be improvising to the video.
Utilize the space.
We'll just start playing reactively to what's going on, tying back to the Vince Guaraldi kind of school of improv. That is a big part of how we come up with it.
I'm exhausted. Whoa. I don't think this is working.
Whether the moment is like calm, sad, or like, you know, these really intense moments, they're still pretty like not overstimulating, but they fit. So like there's a time when like a jug of lemonade is about to fall on Sheldon's head.
Oh no!
How many takes was that for you to like improvise that? The lemonade's flying through the air and you have a synth swell, you know?
The first takes or the improvisational takes will have that kind of fun and whimsy. The song kind of falls apart in a funny way, or you know, we go to an unexpected chord at a funny time, and a lot of times we end up just loving those so much because it's like you could sit here like for hours trying to write that on the page and hit that moment, and you know, it's amazing how much, you know, our first instincts were just reacting to the show, and they are such pure, correct instincts, for lack of a better term.
You ready to dance and chant? Lemonade stand. Lemonade stand?
I forgot to do something at home. See you later. Bye.
Sheldon?
Do you guys do anything distinct or unique to prepare to score Carl the Collector? Like, both because you're scoring a TV show, but also like just knowing that it's not just PBS, but like, you know, the characters are autistic, or like, what do you do to like make sure you're curating the vibe for the audience of the show?
I think the show has an inherent sound that we've honed and have found that is working, that we kind of go off of. But that said, every episode, you know, which keyboard is going to be the main keyboard running through the episode? Well, Forrest has a lot of moments in this episode, and he's designated a fuzz guitar normally. When you see him doing something big in his story, that's just what to us speaks to him as a character is like a 60s fuzzy wah kind of solo across a montage.
I can do it all.
Well,
thanks, Dad. Got the shoelaces. See you later.
There are a lot of little character-specific decisions that get made really quickly. The first thing we do is we watch the episode with no music and experience it and kind of get it in our DNA and decide loosely where we want to go.
Different sounds for different characters. So like you mentioned, Forrest is this little squirrel. He's literally like smaller than the rest of them. This little squirrel who has, I guess, ADHD, Zach, right?
Yeah, yep. And a nut allergy, which is really tough when you're a squirrel and all your family eats is nuts. So that's why we get the pizza jams, because he has to eat pizza all the time.
What should we order on our pizza? I vote for olives.
I love that you have a guitar sound that you're like, yeah, this is the Forest sounds. And certainly Lotta, we mentioned Lotta earlier. She has all these vintage synths. So you guys are obviously busting out your synths when
Lotta's got a sound. She's got a drum machine based 80s kind of thing.
What song is that?
I don't know. I'm just making it up.
I love it.
Sheldon has a Brazilian influence, a bossa nova kind of vibe.
You know those Brazilian beavers?
You know, like the first episode, he kind of came on and he had this relaxed kind of stabilizing positive energy. And, you know, he was wearing a green shirt. Maybe that's subconsciously also, you know.
Totally.
But we just kind of decided, like, another kind of just instinctual decision, like very quickly on the first episode, his first appearance, we just said, he's getting bossa nova and samba music.
Carl! Sheldon is here!
Oh! You're back. I am.
What's that?
My bouncy ball collection.
That's great. Zach, did this all line up with your vision, or like?
You know what's great is that Vincent and Max, they came up with all this stuff. Like I tried to leave it as open as possible. You know, like I definitely have prompts. Like there's a lot of episode rhythm blues that you know, there's a popular like TikTok song that both the Bunny sisters, the twin sisters, are dancing, and it's like a, you know, synchronized TikTok thing.
Lotta, come dance with us. Arugula and I are doing the da-dee-da. You know, everybody da-dee-da.
I was like trying to like rip a little bit on like, I'm like, I want to like a Debbie Deb, you know, like early 80s vibe, like When I Hear Music, that cut, like that kind of feel. They did something like totally different, but it has that sort of bounce to it, like that like great 1982 like club sound.
Max and Vincent, was scoring ever part of your trajectory with Eraserhood Sound, or did it just kind of, do you want to do more beyond Carl the Collector, or is this your main slice? Like, how you liking it?
We're loving working on Carl, you know, and we would love to do more scoring work for animated or not animated even, you know. You mentioned influences earlier, and kind of almost per Zach's direction, we didn't really listen to much other kids' TV scoring before going into it. You know, I would say Peanuts, of course, with Vince Guaraldi, and Hey Arnold, I would say, is actually a huge influence. We loved watching it as kids, and it just had this kind of modern jazz funk.
You felt cool.
Yeah, you felt very cool while you were watching Hey Arnold. That is kind of the energy that we wanted to inject. You know, Carl, we think Carl is like the coolest guy on the block. And the first song we made for Carl the Collector as an audition to show PBS was a song we call Bike Ride, which is basically him leading his friends on a bike ride through the neighborhood. Like Superfly is like this. These are the coolest cats in the neighborhood.
You know, the opening scene from Reservoir Dogs when they're all walking down the alleyway or whatever, it's like that for 4-year-olds. You know, it's like this is my gang and I want to hang out with, and it's like the cutest and nicest, fuzziest animals that you could hang with.
Do you guys tour at all? Like with either as a 2-piece or with other musicians or this show, you know, Carl the Collector on the road, like, you know, are you guys on the road at all? Is there anything you want us to shout out in that department?
we're not going to take the show on the road per se, but we are actually working to get a LP soundtrack on vinyl released that features obviously cues and music from the show. So while it may not be a tour or a concert, we do want to get the music out there for people to enjoy.
I wanted to add to that I'm always just sort of like just on the under trying to get the guys to tour, because I think they should be out there playing if they do have the time. But, after this record comes out, like Yo Gabba Gabba, they were another like great show that had like great music, different vibe, but like that was one I enjoyed as a parent because, Biz Markie was on it or whatever, and Jack Black. And, then they kind of like did a show with it. And I could definitely see this working really well with that like, we could get characters and put together the full band for these guys to do the whole thing. And I think kids and their parents would love it. I think we could fill some halls. It would be fun.
One way we always close these interviews is by asking artists what you're listening to right now, what's inspiring you, whether or not it's related to Carl the Collector. I just want to know, like, what are you really jamming on? Zach, I'll start with you.
It's always changing. The new Surprise Chef, I was listening to that this morning. Stuff I was listening to in the past week or so, all those re-releases of Ian Carr's Nucleus band, kind of British psych jazz rock. And summer's coming, so there's a lot of 80s boogie kind of, Evelyn Champagne King and early 80s stuff, all like Kashif produced stuff. I've been starting to hit that stuff hard as the summer comes on.
Nice. Good vibes. I like it.
Baby, you make my love go down. Ooh, you make my love go down.
Max and then Vincent, what do you think?
I've been diving into the Brazilian side lately.
You're Sheldon.
Yes, for studying for Sheldon. There's an artist named Hilden, actually, which I might be saying his name wrong, but he's a huge pillar of Brazilian soul music. Joyce Moreno, who's an amazing singer, mostly 70s, a little bit of 80s, just bossa nova, samba, boogie.
Se querem saber a história do samba, o samba nasceu numa roda de bamba. O Chico Navalha foi desacatar, o Zé do Pandeiro teve que brigar.
Vincent?
Yeah, I had a lot of soundtrack stuff, like Piero Umilani, I think I'm saying his name right, Italian composer, that kind of stuff. Honestly, though, when I go home and I still want to hear some music after working at the studio, I'm putting on WRTI, which is our local jazz station. Introduced me to a lot of good jazz, so it's awesome that it's there.
Shout out to public radio. I mean, that's huge.
100%. It's a huge part of my ability to decompress, relax, and absorb like new, beautiful stuff every day.
That's awesome. I'm glad you have a station that's local to you that does that for you. That's so cool. So actually, that segues into the very last thing, and this might be a little self-serving, but I have to ask, you guys working on a PBS Kids show, in the least contrived way that I can phrase this, is there anything you guys want to say or can say about the role and the importance of PBS Kids in your own lives, either for yourselves or your kids, and just kind of, how you're feeling about its place in the world right now? I'll start with Zach.
Yeah, man, I have a lot to say about that. But I would say I grew up as a PBS kid, to the point where I first heard the Letter B song on Sesame Street. I didn't know, I heard later the Beatles' Let It Be. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. What the
When I find I can't remember what comes after A and before C, my mother always whispers, let her be.
So, I mean, that's how big of a influence it's been on my life all the way. And I can't believe that I'm part of that family. Like, making a show for them is like a dream come true. But we all know how important that like public media and access to public media is. And, you know, especially for kids, like PBS really, their mission is to sort of like help kids who may not be able to afford to go to preschool to kind of get ready for kindergarten, along with everything else that they do, like bringing informative and entertaining stuff. So like to be part of that, obviously it's a bit under fire right now. And I just, you know, want to encourage anybody listening to this to contact your congressperson and tell them how important PBS is to you, and keep it going, and, you know, don't stop.
I should give context if anyone somehow doesn't know already. Yeah, the PBS Kids, PBS and NPR funding, really public media funding at large, is currently under threat by the administration right now. They want to remove CPB funding, which could certainly put a dent in some of the shows and stations out there. And so that's what we're talking about. But yeah, anything from Max and Vincent on this topic?
Yeah, I was also a PBS kid. Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was a huge one for me, which, you know, I didn't know how radical of programming that was. And I say radical in the sense that it's kind of gentle, low intensity, emotional intelligence show that was super progressive and super important to my development. And the music of Sesame Street too, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, that I'll remember that my whole life. So, you know, as Zach said, it's kind of mind blowing that we get to be a part of that legacy, and we take that responsibility very seriously. We want this to be hopefully beloved for generations, like these other shows that I'm mentioning. And yeah, I would say the same thing as Zach. Reach out to your local delegates, Congress people, and if you love PBS or PBS Kids or NPR, you know, let them know that it's important to you.
Yeah, I mean, my closing thought about that really is like, as someone who works in public media, it's really easy to panic and freak out because it sounds like a really big threat. But I think that, you know, the feeling I've heard someone else say that I feel is frustrated but optimistic, and the optimism really outshines everything because, I mean, one, because we have guys like you making great shows like Carl the Collector that there's nothing else like it happening, you know, and more than that, I have to say, like the people who enjoy and depend on, you know, both PBS and NPR and even KEXP, you know, all together, the listeners and the viewers are stepping up to make it persist and outlast any governmental threat there is. So just thanks to the person listening to this and remembering that it's all an ecosystem that you are a part of by donating. So yeah, Zach, Max, Vincent, thanks so much for talking about Carl the Collector and the music of it, and excited to see more episodes.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, this is really great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Huge thanks to Zach Ohora for creating Carl the Collector. He's promised that new episodes will come out in October, including the first ever Halloween special. You'll find episodes at pbskids.org or airing on your local PBS station, which, as mentioned, depends on your financial support to keep making shows like this. Zach is also still illustrating children's books, including Kitty Bunkport, and also the non-fiction title, Whale Song, the true story of the musician who talked to orcas. Thanks also to Max Perla and Vincent John of Eraserhood Sound. They are constantly collaborating with other musicians, so it's hard for me to round up everything they're doing. But they did say we might get some Carl the Collector on vinyl, so check out their work at eraserhoodsound.com. And that was A Deeper Listen. Please spread the good word of what public media is doing on the air, on television, on radio, in podcasts. Leave us a review, that's a huge help. And even more help, tell a friend in real life or a family member or someone walking down the street, hey, have you heard of KEXP's A Deeper Listen podcast? Those kinds of in-person reviews really go a long way for us. want to thank also our donors of KEXP, people who make one-time donations of $20, or especially our amplifiers who have a recurring monthly gift of $6, $10, whatever you can afford. It goes a long way. You can do that at kexp.org/deeper. Because remember, just like Carl the Collector, KEXP's programming is made possible by listeners like you.
Thank you.
Finally, a quick shout to our engineer, William Myers, for mastering this episode. And I'm Roddy Nikpour. Thank you for taking a deeper listen today. Take care.